I'm making good progress on restuffing the electrolytics. In fact, I've only got one left. I was able to get all the cardboard covers off intact, and cut up into cans, cleaned out the insides, drilled some holes, and ran in the new caps. I can simply heat these up to soften up the tar, plop them back down. This guy, they were 500 volt caps, a little bit trickier to find, so I ended up getting some snap lock caps, like you typically find inside, say, a TV switching power supply, like for a plasma set maybe. Easy enough to get, but they don't have very long leads. They're just little stubby things made for snapping into circuit boards, so I ran some extension wires down on that, put some tape around it to secure things. That will get covered up. Alright, so I worked my way back, and then I got to this guy. Then ran into a little snag. That's the filter for the horizontal and vertical centering controls, shown here. 1000 microfarad polarized, 500 microfarad polarized. And here they are on the parts list. Well, when I got around to actually looking at the real thing, I found out that they are 1000 and 506 VNP non-polarized. That's short for 6 volts non-polarized. So, I really don't think I should use the caps I had ordered, because they are polarized. And yes, I could orient it like they show on the schematic, but since the original was non-polarized, I figured probably had a reason for that. So, I had to place an order with Mauser Electronics, which is alright, because I needed a few other things anyways. So, this just arrived today. Okay, let's see, here's one of them. 1000 microfarad, 25 volts. Now notice they don't really mention on here that it's non-polarized either. But if you look on the can, notice there's no stripe. And it says BP. That's short for bipolar, which is synonymous with non-polarized. Alright, so got that and a few other odds and ends for this and some other upcoming projects. So it wasn't a total loss. I've also made a lot of progress underneath the chassis. There were a few electrolytics under here, all axial. One replacement there, one there, and I have one to put up in here. You can still get axial electrolytics, but nowhere near as common or as inexpensive. Particularly like these RIFA. Long life, rated for 105 degrees Celsius. I'm not sure if they're still made, but now and then I've come across some still in stock at places like Mauser or Ally Electronics or on eBay. Really nice axial caps. Now the one that was up here is for the ratio detector for the audio, and it was only 2 microfarad rated at, I think, 25 volts. So I could go with modern little electrolytics, or I could also use plastic film, 2.2 microfarad, 100 volt. You can always use non-polarized caps in place of polarized. Really, the only reason polarized caps exist at all is because of the space saving. A lot of capacitance in a small volume when you use this electrolyte solution. These far superior in every way and last virtually forever. Now, to get these last 2 electrolytics down here, I had to unmount the shaft. The extension control for the contrast control that runs all the way back to here. I'd mentioned this briefly in an earlier video about how the contrast control is rather unusual in that they use it to just pick off a signal from the video detector. So it just works like a volume control. And then a capacitor coupled it to the video amp. I think every other set I've ever worked on, the contrast control varied the gain on the video amp, like a variable resistor in the cathode. Because the downside of doing it like this is you can very easily pick up noise. fairly low level signal there. So instead of mounting the pot up here and running, say, coax back, they mounted the control back here with as short as leads as physically possible and ran along control shaft. In fact, it's not even a conventional potentiometer. If you look, there's only one lug here. That's where the, or two lugs rather. This one's ground, and that's where the signal comes in back there. So very short for the signal pickoff. Sitting right on that. So that'd be the test jack right there. And there's a little capacitor. And this is ground. So where is the wiper lug? It's actually back here. And then here's the coupling cap to the video amp. So definitely a specialized control, and I sure hope it's good. Otherwise, if I had to, I could put a conventional 3-lugged pot in there, and I hope it didn't pick up any noise. Which brings me to one last update. So I've been struggling between the schematic in the riders, the schematic in the SAMs, and what I'm actually looking at. I've already noticed there are some components that are flat out missing in this chassis, or some of the values are a little bit different. And even in the tuner, I've got a 6AG5 where this shows a 6BH6. Well, I got a great comment on Video Karma that there is actually another schematic for the 196. And he found it in the Wallace Teleaid, which showed a H-196DX. Now, I didn't have the Wallace Teleaid, but I did a little searching on the 196DX, and I found that there's a SAMS for it. And thanks to Shango66, I have a copy of it. So I think the DX stood for distance, and they used a different tube in the tuner to increase the gain, perhaps. Regardless, it matches mine perfectly. So all the mysteries are now solved, including the components locator now matches up. Where I've been curious using the one out of the other SAMs where some of the parts didn't match up, well now everything matches. Including, if you recall from an earlier video, the giant resistor in the damper load circuit. So the original seemed to indicate a value of 3,500 ohms, and then taps at 2 and 1K, or something like that. Well, on this one, 7,500 ohms. Which is exactly what I measured this to be. Likewise, some of the other things I had noticed, like I'd spent some time in a video talking about the biasing on the horizontal sync separator, and I found a 47K resistor in series with a 68K, and I compared that to the theory of operation I found in riders, and it just was flat out wrong, so I put a 47K, or rather I put a 10K in the set. Well, you look on this, and what do you know, it's a 47K. So I had to go back and put it back the way it was originally. Similarly here, in the vertical integrator, 10K, 0.01 microfarad, 10K. I had followed this schematic, which has a 47K and a 0.1 and a 47K, so I just went ahead and put that back the way it was originally as well. And finally, the tuner, 6AG5 RF amp, and it has a 1K resistor inside, and the AGC bus runs exactly the way it is wired in this set. So, I feel much better now. I can go off of this schematic, parts list, parts locator, and so on, and everything seems to be matching up. So, I am going to finish going through and doing a recapping, and then I am going to take out the resistance chart and go through that and check the readings that I get and compare it to what they say it should be, and if everything looks good, I will proceed to try powering it up. And of course I need to reinstall flyback.